So I just got finished listening to a really great conversation with Mark Bell and Jim Wendler on the Powercast. I'll leave a link in the video description if you're interested in listening to it. It's a really great conversation. The audio quality is a bit crappy, but it has some great content on there. And something that Jim says that's really great and gave me an idea for a really good video topic that I'm making today is 10 commandments of training. What are your 10 commandments? And it was pretty cool. I was like, you know what? I have some ideas. And I've never actually put them to paper. And as I was kind of driving and thinking about, I was driving with my wife and I was talking about kind of what my 10 commandments are, and I kind of voiced them out. And the one thing I like about Jim Wendler, is that he has a really great training philosophy. I've read his book, 531, as well as many of his other articles. He has a lot of experience. He's a very strong guy. He's got some great numbers in powerlifting. He knows his stuff. He's also got a lot of experience, and that's really a big part of it. A lot of how we are good at things or get good at anything takes years. And then sometimes you see someone who's fly by night, kind of trying to talk about the latest program, but then they have nothing to really show for it. It kind of doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of why I like Jim Wendler a lot, because he is kind of someone I really respect and someone I look up to. But let me start with number 1, movement quality first. Movement quality is my number 1 commandment, and the reason why is because you got to move good. If you don't move well, you're going to get hurt. Now, you can keep squatting and you can keep increasing the weight, but remember, as the weight gets heavier and as you squat more weight or as you bench more weight, a lot of movement patterns are going to happen that's going to make you get hurt and get micro traumas in joints. And these bad motor patterns will lead to a really bad trajectory. You just got to think of what's a really good example. I always use this example with clients when it comes to muscle imbalances and correcting people's form and technique and kind of what's restricting them. It's kind of like a flathead screwdriver into a Phillips head screw that's tight, that's really tightly screwed into the wall or whatever object that you're trying to pry it from. And use a flathead screw, what's going to happen? It's going to strip it. And if you have a kind of like a bad, even though that the flathead screwdriver will get the job done, similar to putting more weight on the bar, and it'll take the screw out, it'll leave the screw damaged. Now, if you keep adding weight on the bar and you don't have good technique and you haven't refined your technique and you just keep pushing more weight without making sure your technique is solid, you're going to get hurt. So movement quality, make sure you're moving well. And some people are always kind of weird, like, I'm afraid I'm not moving good, or I'm not moving well, or maybe they'll say something like, I think my form is off, what's wrong with my squat, I think something's wrong. Basically, one simple way to kind of view it is if you see it and you don't look like you're moving good, or you feel like that something's off with your form, something probably is, and you need to seek a professional opinion or someone with a lot more experience than you to give you feedback. Number 2, specificity of movement. Why are you training? Why are you doing the bench press? Why are you doing squats? What is your purpose? For lots of times, you always hear that the squat is the king of all lifts, right? But for a lot of people out there who are not into powerlifting, who are not into bodybuilding, who are not into serious training, serious barbell lifts, mastering the squat is not their interest. And trying to motivate them to get better at the squat is a challenge in itself, especially when they don't even have the drive for it. So you kind of have to you still incorporate the squat, but understand that if they don't have the drive, there's probably no reason for it. They don't have a motivation to do the squat because it doesn't fit into their goals. They don't see it as being something that fits into their goals. Now, you can explain it to them, but if they're not doing powerlifting, there's kind of no reason why you should try to have a humongous squat. At least with the people that I work with, remember, I work with normal people that are not trying to get into powerlifting, just people that are just trying to get in shape, just look good during the summer, right? Understand that you do movements for specificity. So I do squat, bench, deadlift as the exercises I do the most of with the most reps, the most sets. Why? Because it's specific to my sport. Not only do I enjoy those things, it's very specific to my sport. It's really about kind of using specificity in your training and making sure whatever it is that you're doing makes sense for what it is your goals are. So remember that. People will say, well, you should just squat or you should do deadlift. Why? Right? Why are you going to do that? Make sure it fits into what you need to do. Now, am I saying that you have to be a powerlifter to squat? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, do you need to do 10 sets of squats? Do you really need to do heavy sets of 5 reps or 8 reps? Make sure it just fits into what you're doing and understand why you're doing it. Another thing to consider when it comes to specificity is that if you are, like, say, playing a collegiate sport like football, basketball, baseball, the goal isn't really to bench press 500 pounds. Although that would be nice, That's not the goal. Your goal is to get better at your sport. You use the tools in the gym to make yourself stronger, to help carry over into your sport. But when you're in season or you're training for your sport, you don't want to do anything that's going to risk injury, or that's going to necessarily, a big lift is great, but it's not necessarily going to always transfer into your sport. So keep in mind that you're doing things to make your whole body stronger, but it doesn't necessarily mean you really actually have to like bench or squat or deadlift a certain amount of weight just so you can get good at your sport. Make sure that what you're doing very fits specifically with your sport. For example, for like a pitcher, I'll just use as another example, is that they throw the ball a ton, right? It really puts a lot of stress on the elbow and the rotator cuff, so they need strong back muscles and shoulder muscles. Get them to bench press, of course. Have them do pull-ups and rows. Yes, that's great. Deadlifts and squats, that's great too. But they also need to do a lot of rotational work. They need to do a lot of kind of rotator cuff strengthening exercises, a lot of external rotation, internal rotation. They need to do a lot more things to make sure they don't get injured due to overuse of throwing the ball. And that's going to be more specific to them because of their sport. Mobilize, foam roll, and stretch. Smash. Smash your muscles, stretch them out. When you're training, in a training session, you want to do as minimal as possible. You're there to train, you're there to work out. You do your warm-up sets, you warm up, you do a general warm-up maybe, and then maybe you'll do some mobility work. You stretch your chest, you do some band distraction stuff that I've shown in other videos, but you do the minimal amount. You do enough to make sure that you can do the movements appropriately with the best position possible. I like doing the hamstring floss to help me get in position for squats and deadlifts. But there's no reason for me to do that if I'm going to bench, for example. So if I'm about to bench, I need to make sure I do a shoulder extension exercise or a stretch, because that way I can get down to here. But sometimes if I'm feeling pretty good, I don't need to do that stretch. You do enough to deal with the problems that you're having. Maybe your elbow's feeling funky, so you'll foam roll your tricep and your forearm. Maybe your wrist is feeling an issue. Maybe you'll wrap it up or tape it up. Maybe you'll stretch your forearm. You just do enough stretch and mobilization to deal with the problems that you have. You don't need to stretch and foam roll everything. A lot of us have a lot of muscle imbalances, but some of those muscle imbalances and bad movement patterns are corrected through better learning, basically getting stronger and doing more exercises to get yourself to move better. So a lot of these things will fix themselves over time. Now, if you want to get to a higher level, you may have to do a lot more mobility work, but that's what my next commandment is for. So commandment number 4, when dealing with a specific issue like an injury, a bad motor pattern, because of an injury or some sort of stickiness like a shoulder impingement or tight shoulders, tight hip like I typically get. I have this left knee that gives me issues, this left hip adductor and hip flexors that gives me issues on and off again. I have a tight ankle on my right side. I have these issues, right? So what do I need to do with those? I do need to mobilize them probably before I do my squats, but I need to spend the time outside of my workout sessions to work on them every single day. If you want to get better and you want to get really good at something, you really have to spend the time working on these things. And if you want to get good and you want to get better, you have to work on these things in such a way that you make improvements. And it's not going to happen overnight. It takes a long time to get good at these things or to improve your flexibility. Remember, a lot of the reason why you're tight or you have bad mobility or you have bad flexibility, the main reason is that your lifestyle, your motor pattern, bad habits, maybe doing too much of a certain exercise, maybe sitting at a desk all day, maybe commuting, maybe a specific sport that you play that makes you in a position for long periods of time that give you problems. Lots of different reasons that cause for this. And you just have to understand that you're not going to be able to fix this by stretching once right before your workout session. It's not going to get better. One big example of this is ankles. Tight calves. It's not something that fixes itself by stretching them right before you work out. You really need to work on your calves on a regular basis if you want to get good dorsiflexion in your ankle. Those are one of the biggest issues that affect my ability to do front squats well. It's because I don't have that dorsiflexion, so it makes me move bad when I do front squats. I have a lot of other issues, but keep in mind that if you want to improve something that's a really big problem that's really preventing you from doing a specific movement, then you really have to spend the time daily working on it. Now, you don't have to spend all the time on it, like an hour a day or anything like that, but just spend 5 to 10 minutes a day working on it on a regular basis so that way you can get better. Commandment number 5. Take people's advice with a grain of salt. Try and test it before you talk shit. Do some research, understand your own body, see how it fits with what your goals are, and then form your own opinion. Now, unless you're talking to a coach or trainer and you're like really very much a beginner, like I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, I've been training people one-on-one for over a decade, I have a lot of experience and I've been working with a lot of people. So my opinion you should not take for a grain of salt, because typically if I'm talking to you and I'm coaching you, you're paying me, so you're going to want to follow my advice. But when you're listening to me like now in this video, like on the internet, right? And you're watching this video and you're not a client of mine, right? You want to take it for a grain of salt because you want to use your own training experience to really understand things. There are some things that you can't really break, like the laws of physics and kind of how your body's supposed to move when it comes to anatomy, and that in itself is kind of a whole can of worms in its own by understanding anatomy and biomechanics. But understand that when it comes to training philosophy, like the cube method, conjugate method, West Side Barbell conjugate method, Wendler 531, what else is out there? Strong Lifts 5x5, Ice Cream Fitness, Novus program. Those kinds of things, they have their own viewpoints on things, on what their goals are. Some of them powerlifting, some of them are bodybuilding. There's lots of different reasons. And then you hear these people talk like Juggernaut Fitness, Jason Blaha, someone I really like listening to, Jim Wendler, Mark Bell. They have different training backgrounds. I love Kelly Starrett, a big Kelly Starrett fan. They have different training backgrounds and they see different things every day when they work with people, as well as their own training experience. They come from different sports, So keep in mind they have different educational backgrounds. Some is more like formal, some is more like informal. You should already know that there is not one best way to train. There is a way that is best for you. And you will do that by trying to learn different ways by first following a program. You follow a program, you see how it does for you, and then you make adjustments after you finish a cycle. Sometimes it's best to just keep doing that program because it kind of helps keep you on track and stay consistent. I will say that there are things that are better than others. Something is more optimal for another thing. Some things are better than other things, right? Lunges or leg press, for example, or squats or deadlifts, or both, which is better. It's kind of what fits into your style and what you enjoy to train, as well as kind of what fits into the context of your own skill level. Some people don't have the access to a coach. Some people don't have the courage to do a heavy deadlift, right? Maybe you're more comfortable doing squats. So then you start light. So understand that, people will say things, oh, you need the deadlift, oh, you need a squat, oh, you need the bench press. And a lot of people will say, and one of the common objections I get when I talk to people about lifting weights is, oh, I don't have a spotter when I bench, right? Or I'm not flexible enough to squat that low. Or I'm afraid of hurting my lower back when I deadlift. First of all, if you really wanted to do those exercises, you'll fucking do them. I mean, if you enjoy them, you'll figure out a way to do them. You'll do a lighter weight, and you will try to learn everything you can to get better. Maybe you'll hire a coach. If you don't have access to a coach, the internet has a plethora of information, and you can keep getting better at it. Doesn't mean you have to freaking max out your first day or even your first month, but you can try to learn the movements and practice and practice and practice. If you really like those things or you want to get good at those things, you'll work at it. You know that I'm a deadlift nerd. That's my blog. I love those things. So I'm obsessed with trying to get better at it. I have a bad back, or used to have a really bad back and have back issues in the past. And for whatever reason, I kind of hooked onto the deadlift, and I figured out a way to work around my problem. And believe it or not, what actually happened was I just ended up with a stronger back, stronger body, and overall, my journey into powerlifting that's where it's taking me. I know I was veering off on a little bit of a tangent, but what I'm saying is that take people's advice as a grain of salt. Use your own training experience. Like if you've been training for several years, on and off, or whatever you're doing, take people's information in, and then make a judgment call based on how it fits with you. Maybe you may need to give something a try again. Like Romanian deadlifts or stiff-legged deadlifts or sumo deadlifts. Like that's something I need to revisit. I used to be in the camp believing that, sumo conventional is the best way and sumo is cheating. And then I tried doing sumo. Sumo is fucking harder than freaking conventional for me. And then I'm like, okay. What I'm trying to say is that once you try things you haven't tried before, it will unlock things in your head and in your own experience that make you realize you really don't know what the fuck you're doing. Or, I don't mean it like that. It's more like, you really don't understand everything. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. And we're all here to learn. That's why you're watching a video about training, because you enjoy this and you want to get better at it. So this video has gotten a little bit longer than I expected. It's supposed to be 10 commandments, but I'm only going to make it 5. I'll make another 5 later. Click like if you like this video. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Share this video if you think it'll help somebody. I'd really appreciate it because it helped grow my channel. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.